Welcome to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashlee Hope, and this is your weekly check-in to get out of your head, into your body, and back into alignment with the version of you who's already living the vision. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into the show. Hey girl, hey, welcome back to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashlee Hope, and per usual, I'm so glad you're here today, friend. I'm so glad you came back. I feel like at this point, we go together real bad, okay? Like, you my friend, okay? But every week, this is a space for us, for real conversations, for honest conversations, conversations that remind you that you're not alone in your growth, in your healing, in your becoming, in your evolution. Okay. It's where we get honest about the stories we've carried and the woman God is calling us to step into and the life that God is calling us to step into. And before we dive into today's topic, I've got something special for you. I'm giving all of my podcast listeners a free subliminal track called The Soft Life Frequency. It's pretty self-explanatory, but this is a 60-minute audio track designed to reprogram your subconscious while you go about your day. You don't have to set time aside to listen to it. You don't got to sit still. Just play it in the background while you cook, while you work, while you rest. And it's layered with affirmations and frequencies that help you soften into ease and into abundance and into peace. And think of it like a reset for your inner world, like helping you release old stories and helping you align with overflow. And so here's how to get it. Leave me a written review on Apple Podcasts. And even if you have an Android, even if you're not an Apple user, you can still go into Google Play and download the podcast app. So you guys should be able to enter as well. So leave me a written review, screenshot it, and then email it to me at hello@ashleehope.co. And once I get your screenshot, I'll send the Soft Life Frequency straight to your inbox. Okay, so let's get into today's conversation. The title of this episode is How Much Has It Cost You, Sis? Okay, the silent price of limiting beliefs and old stories. And I want you to sit with that question as we, get through the episode. Because when you think about the fears you've carried or the labels you've attached to yourself, the limiting beliefs you've been repeating for years, really think about like, how much has it really cost you? And I'm not just speaking about money and opportunities, but friend, I'm talking peace. I'm talking joy. I'm talking relationships. I'm talking purpose, your calling. That's what we're unpacking today. So grab your drink. Again, I'm having a protein shake. I just got out the gym, leg day. Okay. And let's get into the show. Okay, first of all, have you ever heard something, you hear someone say something, and the moment the words land, you know they're speaking straight to your soul, like straight to your spirit. And that happened to me recently. I was working from home. I was sitting on the couch. I had YouTube playing in the background, and I was listening to Angie Martinez's podcast called IRL. It's actually really good if you ever want to check it out. And she had on Adrienne Bailon, who's now Adrienne Houghton. She's married to Israel Houghton. She was a host on The Real. She was a cheetah girl. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But I love the interview. Adrienne was being so real, so honest, so transparent about something most of us wouldn't dare admit out loud. And a lot of us wouldn't even admit it to ourselves. And she was talking about how she struggles with embarrassment. And she elaborated saying, she doesn't like to reach out to people she admires. Sometimes she won't send an email. She won't walk up and introduce herself sometimes. Even if she really wants to connect, she holds back, like something in her holds back. And she also called it pride. But what stood out to me is that her husband, who was sitting in on the interview with her, he asked her a question when she was telling Angie about this pride and this embarrassment. This question stopped me in my tracks, and it was so simple yet so profound to me. And he looked at her and said, well, how much has that cost you? Baby, he wasn't even talking to me, and he snatched my edges. Okay, I had to clutch my pearls. What did you say? And sis, when I tell you, It was like the Holy Spirit grabbed me by the shoulders in that moment. I felt that question so deep. And a lot of times with me, the simplest statements hit the hardest. And it doesn't have to be something profound or something brand new, a new concept. It could be something that sounds small to one person, but for me, it could be life changing. And this was one of those things. And I was like, oh, I got to do a podcast about this. And that's part of the reason I started this podcast, because I know we can hear the same thing 10 times over and over again, but it doesn't really hit. It doesn't really land. It doesn't really resonate. We don't get it until the right person says it. Like sometimes someone's delivery or their spirit, it just hits different where you're able to receive it. Or it's framed in a way that reaches your heart instead of just your ears. And that's why I always ask the Holy Spirit to speak to me and through me when I record these episodes, because we're not here for surface level motivation. We're here for breakthroughs. We're here for transformation. We're here for real change. We're here for evolution. We're here for light bulb moments. We're here for those life-changing epiphanies that make you stop in your tracks and think to yourself like, wait a minute, this is for me. There's something deeper here. So when I heard Israel ask Adrian that question, I knew this was one of those moments, one of those God winks. Yes, he meant financially when he said, what did it cost you? And he's probably talking about the opportunities and the checks that never came because of the embarrassment that held her back. But the Holy Spirit showed me a bigger picture. Walk with me. And I started thinking about all the other ways we pay a price, those fears we carry, the pride we don't want to admit, the perfectionism we hide behind, and especially the labels that we assign ourselves, the ones we repeated so often, they feel like the truth. And it sounds like, oh, I'm shy, or I'm not good with people, or I'm socially awkward. I'm not a great speaker. I could never do that. And instead of working on these things and instead of, taking small steps to build our confidence, we just accept these labels as permanent. We literally make them our identity. And the whole time, these old stories are costing us more than we realize, sis. They cost us our peace. They cost us our joy. They cost us opportunities. They cost us relationships. They cost us purpose. Okay. And that's why this question hits so hard for me. And that's why it matters so much. That's why I wanted to share it with you guys. How much has it cost you, sis? Because the beauty is, like, once you recognize the cost, you can choose differently. You can show up differently. You can walk differently. You can think differently. You can move differently. And that's where the breakthrough begins. And so when I sat with that question, how much has it cost you? I started thinking about the labels we give ourselves. And we don't always call them labels, but that's exactly what they are. They're the little phrases we repeat, the things we say without thinking, the names we learn to answer to. And it'll sound like, oh, I'm shy, or I'm awkward in social settings. I'm not creative. I'm not good with money. I can't stay consistent. I'm just the strong one. I'm too emotional. I'm bad at relationships. And after a while, those words don't feel like opinions anymore. They start to feel like an identity. And they sit on you like a name tag. And you start living as if that's just who you are. But sis, those labels are not facts. Okay? They're not who you are at your core. They're old stories. And just because you've worn those name tags for years doesn't mean you have to keep wearing them. You can put them down. You can take them off. And of course, none of this is your fault. Some of these labels, these name tags, they were handed to you when you were young, maybe by a parent or a teacher or an ex or somebody who didn't know the power of their words. Some of them came from culture, and some of them you created yourself because it felt easier to hide behind a label than to risk growing and stretching or being seen. But here's what I need you to hear clearly. Those labels are not your destiny. They can be unlearned. They can be replaced. They can be rewritten. And so if you're someone who says, I'm not disciplined, baby, that doesn't mean you can't learn to show up for yourself. If you say, I'm not a creative, and I used to say that a lot because I had a finance background and I just hadn't tapped into my creative side yet. But that doesn't mean you don't have the creativity inside of you. It might just mean that you've been too busy surviving to let it out and to let it thrive. If you're someone who says I'm bad with relationship, that doesn't mean you aren't worthy of love that feels safe. Like, do you guys get where I'm going here? The danger in those labels is when you don't question them, because the more you repeat those labels, the more you believe them. And the more you believe them, the more you live inside them. So I want you to pause and really ask yourself, what labels am I still wearing that don't belong to me? Which ones have I outgrown, but I keep holding on to because they feel familiar? And what would it look like to finally put them down? Y'all can put that in your journal, sit with it over the next week, and just see what comes up for you. And so another part about these labels that we don't realize, these limiting beliefs, these labels, they're not free. Every time you wear them, every time you repeat them, they cost you something. They cost you your peace, because when you call yourself shy or awkward, you walk into rooms already second guessing yourself. You shrink, you stay small, and later you're probably replaying the whole moment in your head, wishing you showed up differently. It could cost you opportunities. Think about the job you didn't apply for, the idea you never pitched, the business you didn't start, the program you didn't join. And not because you weren't qualified, but because you had already decided that's not me, or I could never do that. And these limiting beliefs, these labels, they cost us in relationships. How many times have you kept your heart closed because you believe you were bad at love, or too much to handle, or you didn't feel like you had strong discernment and your picker was off, or maybe there's no good men out there? How many genuine connections have you avoided because you told yourself you were awkward or unworthy or hard to love or too dark, too big, too skinny, not conventionally attractive, whatever? And sis, it costs you spiritually too. Every time you choose the label over the truth of who God says you are, you put distance between you and your calling. You ignore the nudge. You delay the assignment. You stay small when you were created for so much more. Y'all get my drift, but this silent cost shows up everywhere. It shows up in your career. It shows up in your friendships. It shows up in the way you see yourself in the mirror, in the way you pray, or sometimes the way you don't pray, because deep down you wonder if God even hears you. And the scariest part to me is that you don't always feel the cost right away. There's no receipt. You don't get emailed an invoice that says, hey, sis, you just missed out on 10 years of peace because you called yourself inconsistent. But it's there. You feel it in the heaviness. You feel it in the regret. You feel it when you look back on seasons of your life and you know you could have been freer sooner. And this is why that question, what has it cost you? This is why it hit so hard for me and why it matters so much. Because when you finally see the price you've been paying, you realize you don't have to keep swiping that card, baby. Okay. You don't have to keep living under those labels. You get to choose a new story. And so before we go any further, I need you to take in a deep breath and give yourself some grace, especially if this feels triggering for you. Okay. Yes, those labels may have cost you. Yes, those old stories may have limited you, but hear me, sis. There is no shame in realizing it now, okay? Like I always say, awareness is a beautiful gift. There is healing in awareness. And when you can finally see the patterns you've been living under, you have the power to shift them. That's where the real freedom begins. And just so you know, God is not holding a record of all the opportunities you missed or the times you stayed small. He is not measuring your worth by what you didn't do, but he is inviting you to step into more. He's always making room for you to grow. And the beautiful part of all of this is that nothing is ever wasted. No thing is ever wasted. Every experience, even the ones that came out of fear or that pride or the limiting beliefs, all of that has prepared you. All of that has shaped you. Those seasons can still teach you. They can still be used to shape the woman you're becoming. So instead of looking back with regret, I want you to look forward with hope. That's the point of today's podcast. That's the point of our conversation today. Today is another chance, yet another chance to tell a different story. Okay, today is another chance to take the labels off and to see yourself the way that God sees you. Give yourself that grace, sis. You've already done the hardest part, which is shining a light on what's been hidden. Awareness is a beautiful gift, but awareness is hard to accept sometimes. It can be triggering. But from here, you get to decide differently. You get to move differently. You get to show up differently. And when I talk about, you get to choose a new story, I mean it. Okay. Those labels you've been carrying don't have to be permanent. You can start shifting them little by little, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And for my note-taking girlies, this is your time to shine. Okay. Get out your handy dandy notebook. And we're going to chat about what choosing a new story, what that looks like practically. Okay. So first, start noticing the words you use about yourself. Pay attention to the little things you say without thinking, whether it's I'm shy or I can't stay consistent, I'm bad with money, whatever it is, I want you to catch it in the moment. The next step is to reframe it. Don't let the label be the final word. It is not who you are. You can take the label off, okay? So when you reframe it, what you're doing here is shifting it into something that leaves space for growth. For example, instead of saying I'm shy, you can try I'm learning to use my voice. Doesn't that feel better in your spirit? Doesn't that leave room for expansion and growth? Another example, I'm inconsistent. You can try I'm practicing showing up for myself. And instead of I'm bad with money, try I'm learning new ways to manage my money. Like even when I'm giving you these reframes, they just feel better in your body. Like just try saying them and see how they feel for you. Like your body will tell you what resonates. Your spirit will let you know what resonates. Your spirit will let you know where the resistance is and what alignment feels like. So play with some of those that you commonly find yourself saying. Okay, next step, take one small action that lines up with the new story. This is alignment. This is the definition of alignment. If you're learning to use your voice, I'm going to need you to start speaking up in a space where you normally stay quiet. Okay. Speak up on that Zoom call. Okay. If you're practicing consistency, try picking one small thing to commit to this week. Girl, if you said you're going to go to the gym 4 days, get your tail up and go. Okay. Prove it to yourself. Show yourself that you are consistent. If you're learning to manage money, make one small intentional choice, like setting aside a little savings or tracking your spending. And then the next step is to celebrate it. Okay. Write it down, put it in your notes app, tell a friend. The small wins matter because they're proof that you're growing. They're proof you're evolving. They're proof that you're transforming. And the more proof you see, the easier it gets to believe the new story you're telling yourself. And here's the main thing I want you to take away from this and take away from this episode. When you choose a new story, it's deeper than just habit changes. We're talking about identity here, who you're showing up in the world as. And with this work, you're really deciding what you're no longer available for and what you're ready to walk into. And you're telling your spirit, I am ready for growth. And you're coming into agreement with what God has already spoken over you, that you are already chosen, that you are already worthy, that you are already equipped. Sis, that is powerful. And when you live from this place, everything shifts. The way you walk into a room, the way you dream, the way you pray, the way you carry yourself when nobody's watching. This is how you stop paying that silent price, that silent cost. This is how you move out of those old stories and step into your becoming. And this is not about waiting for a huge overnight breakthrough, but through small, steady shifts that build over time. So if that question, how much has it cost you, has been really resonating in your spirit today, let it guide you. Let it show you where the price has been too high, and let it remind you that you don't have to keep paying it. Since your story isn't finished, know that you get to decide what happens next, okay? And before we close, I want to leave you with a moment for her. And this week, instead of a meditation, I want to send you with a mantra you can breathe in and carry with you. So wherever you are, just take a breath in and just place your hand on your heart if you can. And just feel your heartbeat underneath your hand. And just breathe into that space. Deep breaths in through your nose. Deep exhales out of your mouth. And notice how your body feels calmer in this moment. Notice the stillness. Notice how your nervous system is softening. And let this be your evidence. Let it be your proof. Let it be your reminder that even if you set aside just a minute for stillness, that you can still experience profound change and transformation and benefits. You don't have to sit crisscross applesauce for 20 minutes to get the benefits of meditation. That's why I love A Moment for Her. But here's the affirmation I want you to carry in your heart. And you can repeat this after me. You can say it out loud if you want to. I am more than the labels I've carried. I am free to grow. I am becoming the woman God created me to be. And sis, just breathe that in. Let it settle. Let it sit in your body, not just in your mind. And you can write it down. You can journal. You can free write whatever comes up for you. You can say it out loud before you walk into a room, before you make a decision, before you start doubting yourself. And just let this mantra be a reminder all week long that you don't have to keep answering to old names, to those old labels, those old stories, okay? You get to choose differently. You get to live differently. You get to show up as her. Sis, I hope this conversation sat with you the way it sat with me. I pray it gave you something to think about, something that makes you pause and ask yourself, how much has it cost me? And remember that just because you see it now, just because you have the awareness now, it doesn't mean you need to feel shame about it. That awareness is a beautiful gift. And once you can name the cost, you get to decide if you want to keep paying it. And from here on out, you can start telling a new story. If this episode spoke to you, share it with your homegirls, text it to somebody who's been on your heart, post it to your story. Let another woman know she's not alone in this. That's how this community grows, one sister to another. And don't forget, I'm giving you my Subliminal, the Soft Light Frequency, completely free. It's a 60-minute audio track that works quietly in the background to reset your subconscious and help you soften into ease, abundance, and peace. All you have to do is leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot your review, and send it to me at hello@ashleehope.co, and I'll send it straight to your inbox. Sis, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up every week, ready to evolve. It means so much that we get to walk in this journey together. And until next time, keep choosing you, keep leaning into who God called you to be, okay? And stay in devotion to your becoming. I'll see you next Tuesday. I'm Ashlee Hope, and you've been listening to Evolving Into Her. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for choosing her, for choosing yourself. And until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming.